Good morning, everyone. My name is Gary Allen, and welcome to our webinar today. It's called On the Front Lines Using Microsoft Copilot with Dennis Garcia of Microsoft. So welcome, Dennis. Thank you for joining us today.
Well, thanks, Gary. It's great to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I'm excited to talk a little bit about Microsoft Copilot, how I use it within the Microsoft legal department to help me free up some time so I could better support my Microsoft business clients, give you a sense for, of course, how we're thinking about it in the entire Microsoft legal department and continuing to use Copilot. And so, yeah, I'm excited for the conversation today.
Yeah, me too. I think this is really great, and we had a really great audience response for this, so should have a good crowd here. Before we get into this part of this, let me present a little bit of additional information. This webinar is approved for credit for the Association of Legal Administrators. For those of you who are legal administrators on the audience, this is a fantastic organization. We may have some members on. If you are not a member and you would like to learn more about ALA, it's all about community and about education. And so we've got some great free education for you today. And if you are interested in learning more about the organization, just type ALA in the chat and we'll connect you with your local chapter. This is all part of Lean Law's Best in Class Law Firm series, which I'll talk a little bit more about. But before we get into that, let me just tell you a little bit about my background. I'm a 35-year practicing attorney, and I've been in a mid-sized firm. I retired at the beginning of 2024 to focus entirely on Lean Law, which is the legal billing software business that I started. But in the course of my career, I experienced a lot of pain from bad business practices, and in particular from two law firms I worked in that actually blew up while I was in them. And so I learned a lot about what works in law firms and what doesn't. And I was really fortunate to land in a firm that is really well run, very profitable. And I learned how much, not only that made me more money, but it made me much happier. So I want to share that knowledge. And that's part of what we're talking about today. It gave me a real passion for making law firms better businesses. And of course, now I'm focused on Lean Law, which is part of this system that can help you get to that point. As I mentioned, we've got Dennis Garcia with us with Microsoft Corporation. He's with their legal department and is out of Chicago and has been one of, I will say, the chief guinea pigs for Microsoft Copilot in the last year as they've been rolling that out. So we'll hear more from Dennis here in a second. But before we get into that, I want to just give you a little bit of background and context. So first of all, today it's all about understanding the potential uses of Microsoft Copilot in a law firm. And I know a lot of you are very curious about that. You've seen it pop up in your M365 account. So we're going to get into that with somebody who's been using it extensively. Now, to give you some context about this, you know, what as a billing software firm, what do we care about Microsoft 365? So, and the reason is really part of this path to best-in-class financial performance that I am so passionate about. And you know, if you're going to make business improvements in the law firm, they have to be simple because lawyers want to practice law. They don't have time or patience for a lot of complicated business concepts. But the system that I've lived and we've built here can actually put additional $8 million per lawyer in your pocket if you improve from average to best-in-class performance in a law firm. And that consists of three things. The thing we're talking about today is efficient process. Mapping your workflows, building on industry standards like M365 and QuickBooks, and adding legal customization and communicating that. Once you have that in place, you're in a position to focus on productive people in your firm. And that's a matter of culture, compensation, and of course, succession, because who wants to work in a firm that's going to close when the founders retire? And then finally, it's about strong product market fit. It's about listening to your customers, creating the right offering and pricing and marketing. And so that's what we're talking about. And let me just talk a little bit more about the process part of that, because that's really where we're focused today. And as I mentioned, you want to make sure you know the workflows that you or map the workflows that you want in your firm. Decide what's going to be most efficient, work best for you, and pick the most important ones. And once you've done that, you need to build on those industry standards. And Microsoft 365 is like almost every law firm uses that. It needs to be configured for law firms. There are consultants out there who can help you do that. SharePoint and Teams in particular are extremely powerful in that respect. So get as much as you can out of M365. The industry standard for accounting is QuickBooks. And so QuickBooks is used by 85% of small businesses, a large percentages of law firm. See if you can use that in your firm. And our product, Lean Law, builds on top of that and customizes QuickBooks for law firms. Finally, you might need a CRM in your firm. But if you build on this, in contrast to trying to lay over an all-in-one software or use legal specific accounting, it's much easier to develop the workflows that you want and will give you the smooth, efficient operations you need in the firm. Finally, you communicate and reinforce those workflows and you're on your way. Okay, that's enough of that. We have created a law firm report card to test how you're performing, and we'll have that available for download at the end of the webinar. And that will help define your strategy as you go through those process, people, and product steps. We have, as I mentioned, this is part of the Best in Class Law Firm series. We have about 9 or 10 of these we did in 2024 that are available in recorded form in our community. If you want to check them out, we're doing 2 a month in 2025. You can see the preliminary schedule here, and this is our second one. So thank you for your patience as I go through this background. Now let's jump into the main event, which is using Microsoft Copilot. So welcome, Dennis. Maybe you could just start by telling us what is Microsoft Copilot today and what is Microsoft's vision for this product?
Sure. And before I begin, I just want to say just thank you to everyone for joining this call here today, taking time out of your very busy schedule. Also, I recognize there's probably a lot of Microsoft customers on this call today, so I want to say thank you for being a Microsoft customer. Thank you for the opportunity to earn your trust. And if you're not a Microsoft customer yet, we welcome the opportunity to earn your trust. But at a high level, when you think about Microsoft Copilot is in essence a digital assistant. It's an AI assistant which is there for you, which sits in the various different workloads and applications of Microsoft 365 to help you be more productive and to help you, quite frankly, achieve more. Microsoft's mission statement is to empower everyone on the planet to achieve more. And a key part of our AI solutions, and especially with Copilot, is really to enable our customers to be able to drive better business impact, to move with more speed, more agility, and to hopefully save time. One of the key aspects which I think I've been able to achieve and using Copilot for the past year or so, is the time saving opportunities in using a digital assistant like Microsoft Copilot. I have found that by using Copilot and having it at the center in the ways in which I'm working every day, it's really helped me save time, which I can then reallocate to do other important work for my Microsoft business clients. It helps me prioritize my work, helps me be more efficient. With some of that time savings, I can also focus on myself and my wellness. It's not just being able to reallocate, my time to do other tasks for Microsoft and our clients. But again, at its essence, Copilot is a digital assistant. It's part of Microsoft 365. I'm sure many of you are familiar with Microsoft 365, one of our flagship cloud solution products. You can get Copilot by, I think it's $30 a month as the additional fee associated with an enterprise license, I believe, for to use Microsoft Copilot as part of Microsoft 365. I think we've also now rolled out Copilot to be used for Microsoft 365 as part of consumer-related usage. I know I'm using Copilot as part of my own individual 365 license, which I have, and I just saw that sort of pop up magically, if you will, about a week or two ago in my systems. But basically, and I'll try to do some demos on how I'm using Copilot. And as I go through some demos, please bear with me because I'm a lawyer, of course. I'm not an engineer, but I'll take you through maybe some how I'm using it. But when you think of Copilot, also remember that Copilot is a general Gen AI tool, right? It's not specific to the law or to the legal industry. It's more general in nature. That said, even though it is general in nature, there is no doubt there's, I think, a wide variety of legal use cases where you can use Copilot to be able to help you deliver even better services to your clients, right? And I find that as I use Copilot more and more, just like any technology, the more you get accustomed to using it and use it more and more, you uncover additional possibilities and more deeper legal use cases for it, right? At a high level, that's what Copilot is all about. When I think of it from a law firm perspective, think of it as maybe a second or third year law student, maybe a legal intern who you can use, and that intern's at your disposal. Now you have to watch over the intern too. You have to manage the intern as well, right? We could talk about that. But think of that, think of Copilot along those lines.
Very, very nice. Thank you. Yeah, and I've got a follow-up question there, but before we do that, we have a poll that I want to kind of get a sense of where the audience is related to AI use. So here it goes. Are you currently using AI tools in your law firm workflows? Give everybody a minute to answer that. Interesting. Give it just a little more time. All right, there are more of you on here. Take a second, please. All right, I'm going to end the poll right there. We have, it's pretty close to 50-50. So we've got some people who are using this and a good number who are not at this point. So I guess we can bear that in mind as we talk to people with different levels of experience here.
Hey, Gary, if I could just make a point on that, and I see that there's 43% of the audience who may not be using any sort of generative AI tools. My response to that is, try to get started sooner than later. This whole area of Gen AI, we're seeing more and more technology companies, including Microsoft, making massive investments in the AI space. We just saw President Trump, I think it was a day or two ago, talk about the new Stargate initiative, where companies are coming together to make I think a $500 billion data center or infrastructure investment in the AI space. The point being is there's lots of investment in AI. These tools are going to get better. I just think it's good for all of us to get started sooner than later. You don't want to get left behind, if you will. And I think, whether you're using Copilot, whether you're using other tools, I think the key point is experiment with these tools, try them out, see which works, best for your organization, but just don't wait. Get started.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So tell me how Copilot is different from, say, ChatGPT or Gemini.
And I will say that I don't think I've ever used Gemini, so it's hard for me to talk about Gemini, but I've
You
used
probably
Chat.
couldn't admit it either, even if you
Probably
had,
couldn't
right?
admit it. If I admitted it, then who knows? Maybe I wouldn't be working at Microsoft anymore if I could have, right? But I have used ChatGPT. I mean, I used ChatGPT uh, before I got Copilot, right? Because
Hmm.
ChatGPT, and keep in mind, we think of ChatGPT, of course, it's an open AI solution. We have a deep partnership with OpenAI where we've made some massive investments into OpenAI. And so, the foundational models which we use for Copilot is based upon OpenAI related sort of technologies.
Right, right.
I would say, at least from my perspective, there are some similarities, no doubt, between Copilot and ChatGPT. However, one of the big differences is that when you look at Copilot, and you've got a version which is more work related, and then you've got one which is more web based. But the beauty of Copilot is Copilot can take advantage of the information and data which is native within the ways you're working within Microsoft, something known as the Microsoft
Exactly.
graph, if you will. So the great thing about Copilot is when you use Copilot, you activate it. It's using the foundational AI models. It's also working with the World Wide Web, if you will. But then it's looking at your data, what's in your OneDrive, what's in your emails, what's in your schedule, your calendars, right? It's looking at all of that. So ChatGPT doesn't do that for you. Copilot
Right.
does that for you. So it's more of what I would say, more bespoke, customized sort of work experience where you can then take better, fuller, more fulsome advantage of Microsoft Copilot.
Yeah. So when I was talking with our CTO about this, he's working on a integration between our software and Copilot. He said, that was one of the things is you got all of your Microsoft native data, but you also have, it'll do things within Microsoft in a way that ChatGPT won't. ChatGPT spits out text for you, but if you ask Copilot to draft an email or, summarize emails or, it'll do things within your Microsoft applications. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. And I'm happy to demo something, assuming I
Yeah,
can.
yeah.
I'm not. I'll be honest. I'm more accustomed to using Microsoft Teams, but I'll just let me set up a demo of what I want to demonstrate in a second. But basically,
Yeah.
like many of us, I spend a lot of time in Microsoft Outlook. I'm generating emails, maybe too many emails on a daily basis. I've got great business clients, but they also want emails from Microsoft lawyers, which are short and sweet. But sometimes when I'm putting my emails together, I've got writer's block. I'm writing so many emails, it's hard to generate new thinking, time and time
Sure.
again. So what I've
Right.
been using Copilot for is to help me put together and compose thoughtful emails to my business clients. And let me see
Hmm.
if I could take this over here. Where is I'm so used
Okay.
to Teams, so just bear with me. Where is the
I
share
understand.
button?
So um, it, it depends on where you are, how you're
Oh, I see
viewing
share.
it.
I see it. Okay.
Share. Yeah. Okay. So I will. Okay. Now you're started sharing.
Let me go to my inbox here. Hopefully there's no
Yeah.
confidential information. Let me know if you see my inbox. There shouldn't be any
I
con.
see your inbox.
Okay, well, let's say, let's see. Okay, where is, oh, for whatever reason, let's see here. Okay, say I want to draft a new email here. Where is Copilot? Okay, uh, here's an email I want to send. Let's just say, oh, here's Copilot. There should be drafting for Copilot, which comes up here. Let's see, Copilot for sales. Oh, here it is. Excuse me for a second. That's why you got to bear with me. So, all right, Copilot, draft with Copilot. All right. A few weeks ago, one of my
Mm,
business clients, very senior Microsoft leader, wanted to understand the basics of US competition law. She leads our practice working with our partners across the Americas. She understands we need to, of course, comply with competition law. We need to make sure we're focused on compliance. So she wanted to understand the basics of competition law. So what I did here is I said, please draft an email to a Microsoft senior business leader, excuse me for a second, outlining the basics of US competition law. Okay, so
mhm.
I do that, generate, excuse me, it's creating a draft right here. Okay, so here is the email which Copilot drafted for me. Okay, and it says, "Dear
Wow.
recipient," and here's an email. Now, what I could do here is then I could use this email maybe as a starting point, right? I can shape it, I can hone it sort of as needed. I may want to adjust it. I can ask Copilot to make it shorter for me because, after all, my clients don't want lengthy emails from Microsoft lawyers. That's fine. Perhaps they want me to adjust it to make it a little more casual because they're not lawyers, they're more business people, so they can make it a little more casual. The point is, this is a nice starting point for me. Okay,
Right.
so I
Mhm.
don't have to start at ground zero, if you will, in creating that email for my client, and I can shape and hone it, and so it's saving me time.
Mhm.
That's just sort of one example, if you will. Another way, which, and let me just move this out of here a little bit. Let me show you another way which I'm using Copilot is summarization. All right. So much of us as lawyers in firms or in-house, we have to review very dense legal documents, laws, if you will. Sometimes they could be really lengthy. So let's say I've been monitoring the sort of evolution of legal ethics in AI and some of the legal ethics opinion. The ABA,
Mm.
American
Right. Mhm.
Association, came up with an opinion on the intersection of AI and legal ethics. I think it was last year. So I could say, okay, please, and this is a prompt which I'm putting into Copilot. Okay, please provide me with a summary of the ABA legal ethics opinion on AI. Okay, I played around with this before. That's why it remembers what I had put in before.
Right.
Okay, but okay, I asked them to do that. I asked Copilot to do that. They're looking at the ABA legal ethics opinion right now. They're combing through some of my work within Microsoft. And here is the summary, okay, which it
Mhm.
provides, okay. And again, it's a good starting point if you want to, if a client of yours, is interested in learning some of the basics of this ethics opinion, you can share that with them in a bulleted format, right? It's sort of
Mhm.
ready to go. I think the summarization features in Copilot are highly rich. I know as a client, we work with a lot of great law firms, large law firms, medium-sized law firms, small law firms. But when I'm paying for my legal services from these great law firms, um, I don't necessarily need a 30-page memorandum, if you will. I need to understand the basics of
Exactly.
the law, maybe their recommendation, maybe some guidance, which I can then turn around very quickly and share with my clients. And the summarization tools in Copilot are very rich. I also use Copilot to help me summarize the myriad of Microsoft Teams calls that I'm part of. Like many of you, I could be all
Right.
day spending time in team calls and meetings. A lot of times I
Right.
have back-to-back calls or there's calls I just cannot participate in. Oftentimes we record our calls through Microsoft Teams and then I can listen to those calls on demand. But what's great about Copilot is Copilot will also provide you with a transcription or summarization of those calls or notes
Mhm.
from those calls. So instead of having to listen to those calls on demand for an hour, hour and a half, I can get the summary, I can get the transcription, I can read it. I could see whether or not if I was mentioned in the call or not, and if I was,
Yeah.
I should listen to it. And so I'm saving time by not having to always listen into the totality of those calls.
Right.
I have sort of a
And
what I call a Cliff Notes or Monarch Notes version of these calls.
now this the thing you just drafted, it looks like it's natively in Copilot. It's in Copilot itself, but you could have drafted this in Word or, you
Yes,
know, PowerPoint, something else if you wanted, right?
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely. And then the point in PowerPoint, let me just share something with you, which I think hopefully it will showcase well here. Just give me a second. But you're right. This is natively within Copilot, but there's like there isn't like, but there's a Copilot for each of the applications. So let's say if I go to PowerPoint. As Microsoft lawyers, we spend a lot of time in PowerPoint. Let me bring it up here. Um, a lot of times we give a lot of presentations, deliver a lot of
Hmm.
presentations as Microsoft lawyers, whether it's to our customers, partners, or business clients. So taking this piece about let's see, taking this piece about the ABA legal opinion. Let's say I want to put together a presentation to my clients or maybe to third parties as part of a panel discussion about what the ABA ethics AI opinion says, right? I can ask Copilot to create a presentation on that. So let's say I go here and I could say, excuse me while I just move teams, create a presentation about the ABA legal ethics opinion on AI. Okay, let's ask if it can do that. And then it's creating potential topics for me to cover as part of that opinion.
Wow.
Okay. And then, so it's giving me like an outline as to how I may
Hmm.
want to approach this. Okay. Which I think is nice, a nice starting point. Then I can go here and say, please generate some slides. Because sometimes, even though I've used PowerPoint a lot, I'm not Mr. PowerPoint, right? I'm not an expert when it comes to putting
Right.
together PowerPoint presentations and slides, right? So it's putting slides together right now. It's taking a little time here. Here you can see the slides are being developed. Let's see, hopefully it'll be done momentarily. It's adding content to slides, but it'll show up here hopefully very quickly. Okay, so here's an example
Oh my goodness.
of the
Yeah.
slides.
Okay.
Okay, and I can go
Wow.
through it maybe from the, you know, you can see here, these are just some sample slides using some pretty cool images and graphics, that you can
Right.
use. Now, this isn't meant to be a final version, but it's a nice starting point where, again, it could save me time. Instead of me spending 3 or 4 or 5 hours putting together slides, which I've done in the past, I
Well,
don't have to do that anymore.
I'll
Copilot,
tell you.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is uh, better looking than 98% of lawyer PowerPoints I've ever seen.
Yeah. And then Gary, as
No
it
offense out there,
Yo,
but
no, no. And the beauty of it is, as it becomes more familiar with you, right, as a professional, as a person, then I think, and what you like in the slides, right, then it can sort of make it more bespoke and tailored to Dennis Garcia's way of presenting. I'm not a big,
right.
I don't need a lot of, let's say, letters or words on my slide. I'm more of a pictorial person when it comes
Yeah.
to my slides, but it can
But
help adapt to that. But those are just
we
just a
actually,
few
yeah,
examples.
we had a question in the chat here along those lines. It says, can you give it prompts relating to the aesthetic of the PowerPoint? And I assume you can, like make it less black, more, more orange, something
Yeah,
like that. Or,
you should,
or
I
more,
have,
more word, more pictures, less words.
yeah, exactly. And you can do that. I think,
Yeah.
and this is the thing about Copilot and any of these Gen AI tools is that we all need to be skilled in the art of prompting, right? You got to
Hmm.
learn how to be a really good prompter. Though I do think as lawyers and legal professionals, it's in our DNA to be great prompters because to be a really good prompter, you have to be astute at asking questions and precision questioning,
Right.
being specific. The more specific you are in the ask of Copilot, the richer output you'll get from Copilot, right? So,
Exactly. So there are a couple things that have come up in the chat here. One is it's not quite a feature request, but kind of. It says a request of Microsoft. Please ensure that the Copilot result doesn't add symbols like hashtag to the result, so it's easier to cut and paste.
Okay.
Additionally, I want the result text to be easily pasted into Word with little change to formatting if possible.
Well, that's great feedback. I'm happy to
Yeah.
supply that to our engineering team in Redmond. But no, that's excellent feedback.
There we go.
Mhm.
And then here's another question about the PowerPoint. So how is this pulling from the native data from your Teams or emails and chats or docs, or is it not?
Well, I think in that scenario with the ABA legal ethics opinion, I don't know. I don't think I've shared much in terms of my emails or created any sort of unique documents as it relates to that opinion. So it probably scoured, my Microsoft Graph to see if I had anything unique in there about the opinion, which
Right.
I commented on or which I reviewed. I don't think I did, but I'm sure it did scour that. There was probably nothing there. And so I think for that example, it was probably using information from the internet, really basically from
Yeah.
the wide web.
Yeah. So how do you kind of put sideboards around the data that it looks at for something? If you're doing an HR memo and you don't want to pull from the personnel file, so that because of who it's going to go to, can you say don't look here or there, or how do you make sure that it's using the information that you want and not the information that may be sensitive or otherwise not included in your creating your response?
Well, I mean, a few things. Number one, it would be looking, I guess, more at your own particular native data. It shouldn't be
Yeah,
looking at the OneDrives, let's say, of my colleagues or other people in HR. So it
yeah,
should not
yeah.
be
Okay,
pulling that data. So there should be, boundaries there. That's number one. I think number two, keep in mind that whatever output you're getting from any generative AI tool, Copilot or anyone else, I mean, I think you have to also make sure that you're conducting the appropriate due diligence and verification and review of that output. And this is something which we're going to see come up more in, I think, legal ethics opinions across our country. And we're seeing more and more legal ethics opinions in various states about the intersection of AI and legal ethics. But you got to do your work and verify that the output of a Gen AI tool makes sense for you and for your clients. You just shouldn't just take it verbatim. I know there's been some legal ethical cases of some lawyers who have just used what's been provided by ChatGPT and using cases from which ChatGPT has provided to them, and they just stick it in a brief, right? You really shouldn't be doing that. You got to do a fair amount, you got to
yeah,
do the appropriate due diligence to look at the output and to say to yourself, well,
right,
does that pass muster under the law? What's your thoughts on it?
yeah,
So for any of these tools, okay, there is opportunities for these tools to hallucinate, okay?
right,
And so
right.
you have to make sure that as a lawyer, that you're also embracing the element of responsible AI in your usage and consumption of it. We talk a lot about responsible AI as it relates to a provider of cloud solutions like a Microsoft, and we have a number of we have 6 key responsible AI principles, which we've transformed into practices as to how we develop Copilots in other Microsoft AI solutions. But there is a responsible AI, I think, obligation on behalf of the consumer or user of these tools. And as I said, we're going to see more and more legal ethics opinions in this area. Just like how we saw legal ethics opinions several years ago about lawyers using cloud computing solutions. Most of those
Hmm.
opinions, I think all those opinions said it was okay for lawyers to use cloud computing tools, but of course you have to, preserve confidentiality. You have to manage those solutions. You have to understand the potential benefits and risks of those solutions. And the same thing
Exactly.
will apply to AI tools. You got to make sure that you understand what these tools are doing. And if you don't, there's an opportunity for you to get a consultant or other people to help educate you. You could attend sessions like these CLEs,
Right.
which are wonderful to upskill, you in this area as well. But the key point is the outputs are important from these tools, trust to a point, but you have to actively verify the output to the best of your ability.
Yeah. my mind keeps going back to the guy who showed up as the cat lawyer on the Zoom
Yes.
hearing. It's like, hey, you got to know what you're doing with these things, or you're going to wind up making a fool of yourself in many ways. So, yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great point. Another question from the audience: where is the best place to learn prompts for Copilot?
Well, I'll tell you what, let me do something. If I can share my screen again, if that's okay.
Yeah, please.
Uh, let me ask Copilot that question. Where is the best place?
I don't see your screen yet, but go
Okay.
ahead.
Okay, let me just here it goes. How's that?
Not yet. It looks like you highlighted my screen. Here, I'm going to stop sharing.
Okay. Do you see it now? It says here, like you are screen sharing. I'll tell you what, let me stop sharing for 1 second. Let me just do it one more time.
Yeah, okay. Now, if we were using Teams, I'm sure we wouldn't be having this problem. So,
How's this?
yes, there we go.
Okay. I'm
Perfect.
sorry. The question was, what's the best place? I can't see it. What's the best place?
To learn prompts for Copilot.
Okay, let's ask Copilot. Okay, there are several resources. Now, keep in
Hmm.
mind, okay,
Wow.
keep in mind, they're looking at this now from an internal Microsoft perspective. So,
Right.
both basically from internally and also from the web. So, for my company, Microsoft, we've created some SharePoint sites and internal resources where we've been sharing prompts within the Microsoft legal department and community, like preferred prompts. Okay, so it's going to show it brings me to those areas, right? But then from the
Hmm.
web, if you want some more information here on how to make a great prompt, I can go here. We could take a look at it here. You can go to a Microsoft resource here, cooking up a great prompt, getting the most from Copilot. We have a number of other publicly available free resources on how to learn about being an effective prompter, which you can
Hmm.
consult. So, but there's a lot of great resources. Check it out. From my perspective, like anything else, the more you get skilled in prompting, the more you do it, the more skills you gain at becoming a better prompter. You just have to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and what I've enjoyed here is that it's pretty intuitive
Yeah.
how you do this. It's not, like you have to know some super secrets of Microsoft 365 to um, get it to produce a good result. So that's very heartening.
And
Um,
Gary, I'm not trying to be flippant here, but there's been times where I've been on uh, panel presentations talking about AI or talking about Copilot, and I'll have my computer in front of me. I'll get a question from the audience, and they'll ask me a question, and I'll put it into Copilot, and then Copilot will provide that answer, and I'll share the answer. But the point being is that this is a really powerful tool, which you can use in different ways to get
hmm.
a wide variety of information at your fingertips in a easily understood, digestible fashion.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. And I just want to note that Dennis sent me a couple really good documents about using Copilot in legal, and it's going to have some of this information in it. You'll get that after the webinar as well. Um, we have another question. Says, can Copilot provide a daily report of the documents/emails you have worked on and the estimated time, or a daily summary of emails? For example, you emailed with Dennis today and agreed to provide PowerPoint to him tomorrow.
Well, here, let's ask. I think it can to some degree. Please provide me with a daily report of my emails from the past, let's just say 2 days. We'll
Okay.
see. Maybe confidential here. Maybe. Who knows? Okay. Um, okay. Here's a summary. Of course, I got an email from Gary, right? I've gotten emails from other people, and it gives you sort of an overview of the various different, emails that you've received. The way I use this, quite frankly, is like many of us, I like to take vacation. I like to take a real
Hmm.
vacation when I take a vacation. And the first thing I do is when I come back from vacation is I go to Copilot and I ask Copilot, well, can you please identify emails from my manager. I put my manager's name or some of my more senior business clients, right? And I put their names in there. And
And
then all of a
ignore the
sudden,
ones from Gary,
yeah,
right?
and of course not, Gary, no way. But I mean, but of course, I get the email. So then as I get back into the office, I can prioritize my work and I can focus on the emails from my manager or my manager's manager or my senior business clients first. So it allows me to prioritize my day, right? And
Hmm.
you can get more deeper and sophisticated, in those asks as well. So
Right, right.
yeah.
Um, let's see. So I'm gonna run another poll now, just so we can understand a little bit more about how ready our audience is for AI. And I think that's been now that we've seen a little bit of what this will do, this will give you uh, give everybody a little idea of what we're looking at. So uh, the question is, how ready is your firm to adopt AI? And so it's a good contest so far between ready and somewhat ready. Give you a few more seconds here to respond. We've got about half of the audience has pitched in here. Okay, so this is better than I was expecting. So um, I'm going to share the results here. We've got 38% of you are somewhat ready and 62% totally ready. So I think we got the advanced class today. So thanks for sharing that information, everybody. Um, so we talked. I mean, you've been talking a little bit about what you do, um, but just talk a little bit more about how you see Copilot transforming day-to-day workflows of legal professionals in law firms. What, as you
Yeah.
see this, like what really stands out as the killer applications here?
Well, I'll say a few things, and I will also caveat here. I've never worked for a law firm in my entire career. I've always worked as an in-house lawyer, but I've worked with a wide variety of law firms during my time. I would say, going back to our first point, which I made about the time-saving aspect of using Copilot, there's a lot of things you can ask Copilot to do where it comes to a lot of the maybe routine, repetitive work that lawyers have done for a long period of time, which I think you could ask Copilot to do and put it to work, if you will, for those tasks. So I
Hmm.
think you know when I think of some of the work, I mean, when we talked about the summarization piece of it, I think that's a strong application. I've been using Copilot more and more. I have clients who are based in Latin America, as an example. My Spanish isn't that great, although my last name is Garcia. My Portuguese is non-existent, but I will get emails from my clients in Latin America in their native language, and I use Copilot to translate what they're asking of me, and then I send my answer back to them in their native language, right? So it's got really strong translation sort of
Yeah,
features. And as I think about that more deeply, I think there's opportunities to use Copilot to perhaps translate and localize Microsoft's contracts, which we have, to those certain countries without maybe getting a vendor involved. Or if you do get a vendor involved, perhaps you can provide a halfway of a finished product, for them to review versus,
right.
just from a starting point. I think
Yeah,
there's opportunities to use Copilot to do some basic legal research. As an example, we just saw our new president put together a number of executive orders, right, over the past few days. You can go to Copilot and you can get a summary of those executive orders. I also was playing around with Copilot earlier today, and I asked Copilot, well, can you give me an overview of some of the more recent U.S. Supreme Court cases which will affect employment law considerations for companies, right? And it
Hmm.
provided me like three or four of the big cases from the last year or so. And it gave me a synopsis of those cases. Then I asked a follow-on question saying, well, with regard to this particular case, okay, I forget the name of the case, but I asked the question directly for this case. Now that this new case and this new ruling is applicable to all of us, what does it mean for business organizations? What should organizations do to comply with the law in the new case? And it came out with like five or six things that
Mm,
organizations should be doing to put themselves in a good situation to comply with the law. And so, in some respects, it's getting to the point of rendering some thoughtful legal advice. Now, that doesn't mean
right.
that you have to use it verbatim. You got to check the legal advice and everything. But I think there's opportunities to use Copilot as a first point, if you will, in providing counsel to your clients. Um, a lot of lawyers too, especially if you're a smaller law firm, maybe you don't have a richness of a contract repository. Maybe you need a starting point for certain
Right.
contracts or unique contracts, right? Which maybe you haven't practiced in this area. You can go to Copilot and you can ask, well, can you please draft me, this type of contract involving this matter between these parties? And it will provide you with a starting point. It's not a final version, but it could provide you with something to work with. So I think for medium and maybe smaller law firms, which may not have the kinds of resources that a large law firm has, or like a Microsoft legal department has of 2,000
Hmm.
lawyers and legal professionals, it can really be used, as I mentioned earlier, like a legal intern or a second or third year law student
Yeah.
to help you. Now, again, the legal advice, it's not going to always be perfect, but when you have a first year associate, he or she's advice ain't going to be perfect either, right? So you got to make sure you're managing the tool, you're checking it, you're looking at the output to see if it makes sense.
That's fantastic. Yeah, it feels very organic. It's just like, oh, I'm stuck. You know, what can Copilot tell me? And it could be in many, many different contexts. So, I really, I really like that. What I'm
And the
hearing.
organic nature, I'm sorry, I think
Yeah,
the organic
please.
nature is very important because, let's be honest, sometimes lawyers have had a reputation of not embracing change and maybe not using leading technology. I don't like that stereotype. Really. But the thing about it is the only way we're going to largely use technology is if it's pretty easy to use. And if it is easy to use, then you're going to go back to it time and time again. You're going to you're deeper into it. So what I love about Copilot, to your point, it is pretty organic. It is pretty easy to use,
It's
you have to get skilled in the prompting piece of it. But I'll tell you, if you use Copilot for a few days or for a few weeks before you know it, you'll be a champion prompter, basically.
right. And it's just everywhere in M365. Whatever app you
Yeah.
go to, it's easy to find. And, it's just a prompt. So, I mean, I use AI like almost every day in my work. And I mean, it makes some things like so much, it's like any sort of summarizing activity. It's like, oh, thank goodness. That's now takes seconds where it used to take minutes or hours. It's pretty amazing. Um, let's see. We've made a total hash of my list of questions here, but I think in a good way. Uh, Tell me a little bit about how Copilot helps your regulatory compliance attorneys.
And so, the Microsoft legal department, as I mentioned, we have a very large legal department. We have several lawyers in our regulatory affairs and privacy and data protection group out in our corporate headquarters in Redmond, Washington. And I think a way in which they use Copilot or can use Copilot, and I have not spoken to them recently, but we're seeing an evolving regulatory landscape as it relates to AI, right? We're seeing new laws or
Yeah,
regulations come into play. So you can go to Copilot and you can ask Copilot to provide you with an overview of the most current, laws as it relates to certain countries or maybe states within the United States, and then it will provide you with this output. I think there was I think there was a recent executive order by President Trump, newly elected President Trump, where there was something on AI. I forget exactly, but if you wanted to take a look, go to Copilot and ask, for information about that AI executive order, you can find that out, and it will give you a synopsis. So I guess my point being is Copilot can give you real-time and current information on the evolving regulatory and data privacy landscape, so that you don't necessarily need to go to a large law firm to do that sort of 50-state survey, or
Right.
perhaps a very involved memorandum. You can get that information at your fingertips
Mm,
from Copilot. Okay, and so
yeah.
so I think Copilot can help you stay abreast, at an ever-changing regulatory
Yeah.
environment.
Yeah, I remember as a summer associate in 1986, I had to do a 50-state survey for uh, uh, I think it was an employment law question of some kind. It took me weeks to do that. This was in the 80s, right, when it all had to be done by hand, and that's a entirely different matter now. That's remarkable. Okay, so make sure we address a couple questions I'm sure people have. So what ethical considerations should law firms be mindful of when integrating tools like Copilot into their workflows?
Well, I think with any generative AI tools, the first thing you need to do is you got to make sure you're doing the proper due diligence and review and
Yeah,
evaluation of
yep, we've
providers,
heard that
right? And so
over and over today. Yes.
yeah, you got to really take the time to do that, right? So I would encourage any firm to make sure they're comparing perhaps a variety of different offerings, try to understand what are they doing from a data privacy and security perspective, understanding issues about can they use your data to train the underlying foundation models. As an example, at Microsoft, with Microsoft Copilot, we say in our contracts that we will not use your data to train the underlying foundational
Mm,
model. So we say that.
hmm. Right.
Microsoft also, as many of you may be familiar with Microsoft 365, we provide a wide range of data protection and privacy, security, assurances and commitments from from an operational perspective. We're complying with laws such as the GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation, the California Consumer Privacy Act, right? So we're complying with important applicable laws as it relates to data privacy and security. We just issued some information a few weeks ago about the work which we're doing right now to set us up to be in a position to comply with the new EU AI Act, which will be it's already law, but it's going to be enforceable, or it's enforceable right now, or will be enforceable very soon. And we could share some information to folks on the call about that. But you want to understand a little more about the offerings from a data security and privacy perspective. Also, a good idea to maybe ask Gen AI providers, can you give me case studies, case references regarding your AI solution? We have a number of case studies and references from law firms, especially from law firms in the EU. We just recently received, I think about a month and a half ago, a case study from DLA Piper, one of the great law firms in the world. They're using Copilot. You could check that out online, and we expect to have hopefully other case studies from other large law firms in using Copilot. But you got to do your homework, I think, number one, and making sure that these tools properly protect the confidentiality of your client's data. That's very important.
Yes, yes. So we had a question here about whether Copilot's available on the old Outlook desktop version. Someone answered it to say no, it isn't. But maybe you could help us understand what kind of subscription you have in order to have Copilot available.
Yeah, and when I think of old Outlook, I'm not sure, there may be different definitions as to what's considered old, because I may have, quite frankly, I think I may be using an older version of Outlook, and I'm using Copilot. I don't know if I've if I'm using sort of the latest version of Outlook. But I'd have to get back to the team on that, quite frankly, in terms of the various subscriptions. But at a high level, from an enterprise subscription perspective, you can get Copilot for enterprise customers, and I figured exactly. I think enterprise customers may be defined as 50 or more, seats or users. I may be wrong on that, but you can get a license to Copilot. But now with the consumer version, you can also get a license to use Copilot as well. So
Okay.
you think it's the case that it's should be very widely available to almost anyone who wants to be able to use Copilot, whether
that's
a large enterprise or a smaller enterprise or on an individual basis.
Right. Yeah. Looking at the subscriptions recently, it seemed very intuitive to figure out what you needed to do in order to get Copilot. So there's probably a longer discussion than we have time for about how the subscriptions are changing to accommodate this, but I don't think it's going to be hard for folks to figure out. And there is a conversation going on in the chat about exactly that. So we are at the hour. We started a bit late. Do you have a couple extra minutes for one or two more questions, Dennis?
Yeah, let me just, if I could just, I want to message my colleague just to let him know that I'll be late for the call, but yeah, sure.
Okay. Let's see, let me make sure I get so what do law firms need to do to develop ethical rules, standardized procedures, and tailored prompts to make sure that Copilot's used responsibly? And, I mean, we've heard all this, like check the work, understand that part, but what else have you seen that has helped to, kind of make Copilot more productive and also give people comfort that it's used appropriately?
Well, I mean, I'll say a few things. I think like with any newer technology, if you want it to be used extensively in your organization and adopted, I think you have to set the right tone at the top from the senior leaders of your organization.
Mm-hmm.
What I mean by that is they have to embrace it and use it and find that hopefully it's something which is productive for your firm and for your clients. I see it in the Microsoft legal department, and I recognize we're unique because we've created this product, but I'm constantly hearing from our Microsoft senior legal leaders, whether it's our vice chair and president, Brad Smith, or our chief legal officer, Hossein Obar. They're constantly providing us with examples as to how they're using Copilot. They're sharing their examples. They're talking about how they're using Copilot to interact and provide guidance to our senior business leaders. So the more which you hear that from your senior leaders and actual practical use cases, I think that trickles down to everyone else. And then other folks may be more willing to use Copilot or any generative AI tool. I think the second thing I would just say too is I think every organization needs to start thinking about a appropriate policy, internal policy, or practices when it comes to generative AI tools. The policies don't have to necessarily be so long, but you have to say to yourself, okay, what should my firm be doing, before they're using or as they're using these tools? What are some of the best practices? And these policies and practices should be updated periodically, right? Because we're going to see a lot of change in the AI space moving forward. So you have to then periodically update these policies and practices and make sure that they're really easily understood by people in your firm.
Yeah. And I bet Copilot could give you a pretty good draft of some policies and procedures.
Exactly. But there again, it will, but you don't want to just cut and paste that because maybe it's not applicable to your organization. This is where then the legal know-how comes in, where you have to look at this work and you have to say to yourself, does that make sense for us, or how do I evolve it or change it?
Exactly. And if I get one last question in, which is, what do you see? How do you see this product changing and evolving over the next 3 to 5 years?
Well, I think, quite frankly, I think it's just going to get better over a period of time, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's we're making at Microsoft, we continue to make massive data center AI investments. So rest assured, these solutions are just going to get better over a period of time. And I think people are going to be more comfortable in using and interacting
Yeah.
with them, right? So, uh, yeah, as I said earlier, I think, try to get started now in using these tools because it's just a matter of time before, I think it's just a matter of time before we're going to see legal ethics opinions out there saying that, oh, if you don't use these tools, because they've gotten to be so good, you're actually then not complying with your ethical obligations because sometimes these tools are going to get to the point where it may be even better and more precise and more accurate than the legal advice that lawyers and humans will provide on certain subjects.
Yeah.
I think we will
Yeah.
get to that point at some point in time, maybe in the next, not in the next 3 or 4 or 5 years, but 10, 15 years down the road.
Yeah. That's amazing. Well, Dennis, I need to let you get on with your
Sure.
day. This is fascinating. But thank you so much for your time, and thanks everybody for attending. As I mentioned, we will be giving you some additional information as on the slide here. So look for that email with more information. You'll be able to see this again. And someone asked for a transcript. We'll make sure we can put that together thanks to an AI tool of some sort. So thanks everybody for joining us. This was a really fascinating talk from my perspective. So thank you again, Dennis, and we are adjourned.